never thought I'd hear my own daughter shout at me like I was a stranger. I never imagined the same mouth that once kissed my forehead goodnight would now yell, "Get out or I'll call the police." The living room was still messy from the fight we had the night before, blankets tossed around, a cold cup of tea I never got to finish, and a little toy truck wedged under the armchair. Rachel stood by the hallway, gripping her phone like it was some kind of weapon. Her eyes were wild, her voice sharp and cold. "If you don't leave now, I will call the police, Mom. I'm serious." I didn't say a word. What was there left to say? My hands were shaking so much I couldn't even tie my shoes properly. As I reached the door, her voice came after. "Me again, you're not well. You're making everyone uncomfortable." That word, everyone, hit hard. The kids. Her boyfriend. Even the neighbors she thought were always watching. The air outside was heavy and damp. A thin mist hugged the bushes like it was hiding something. The wooden porch creaked under my feet, almost like it knew this moment wasn't how things were supposed to end. I didn't cry. I didn't fight. I didn't beg. I just walked, my coat wrapped tightly around me, my bag dragging behind like dead weight. My heart was somewhere far behind me. As I walked, my mind drifted back to when Rachel was little. She was 4, wearing pink overalls, crying because her peas touched her mashed potatoes. She was 7 and afraid of the dark, clinging to me like I was her safe place. Every morning, I'd braid her hair, one hand holding her tiny chin, the other weaving strands like it was my purpose. I used to whisper, "You're safe, baby," even when everything around us was falling apart, when her dad left, when I worked 2 jobs, when all we had was each other. I passed the old sycamore tree, the one that shaded the yard where she once played. I passed the mailbox she painted in glitter and crooked stars. My eyes burned, but I didn't let the tears fall. She didn't even come to the window. I hadn't lived alone since I sold my condo 2 years ago. Rachel begged me to move in with her. "Come live with us, Mom. We'll help each other. You won't be alone." And I believed her. God help me, I did. But slowly, everything changed. At first, it was little things. "Can you watch the kids for a bit?" Then, "Money's tight, maybe we could use a little from your savings. Just until we catch up." Before I knew it, it wasn't our money anymore. It wasn't even my home. I had become a guest, no, a problem. She was going to call the police on me. As if I didn't belong. As if I was some stranger in her life. But I wasn't angry, at least not yet. I was still in shock. Still trying to understand how the girl who used to draw me crayon hearts with "Mommy is my hero" had turned into someone who saw me as a burden. A threat. And even then, all I could think was, how did I let this happen? I gave her everything. And now I have nothing. That night, I didn't go far. Just 2 blocks down to Meredith's house, the kind of neighbor you wave at, not someone you expect to rescue you. But when I knocked, she didn't ask questions. She just opened the door and said, "You can stay as long as you need." Looking back, the signs were there. Rachel started checking grocery receipts, saying the oatmeal I always bought was too expensive. She frowned when I made stew with beef instead of chicken. "Maybe we should start budgeting better, Mom." But it wasn't about oatmeal or stew. It was about control. She took my debit card, said it would help with organizing bills. I gave it to her, thinking it was just temporary. Then she locked the office, the one where she kept the house paperwork. It used to be where I stored my own files too. I asked if I could grab my tax documents. She gave me a tight smile and said, "Oh, I already filed them for you, no worries." That's when it hit me, I couldn't even remember giving her those forms. After that, everything started to fall apart. She began collecting all the mail, said it was easier that way. But letters stopped arriving. My pension statement, my investment account update, they just disappeared. I tried calling the bank, but the voice on the line didn't feel like mine anymore. And just like that, I realized, I wasn't living with my daughter. I was trapped by her. I never thought it would come to this, losing everything, including my own identity, in a house I once believed was my safe place. It all started with small things, like Rachel asking for help with bills or saying she'd handle my tax papers. But then, one day, I tried calling the bank myself and found out some of my account information had been changed, without me knowing. I couldn't even answer their questions anymore because I didn't recognize the details. That was my first real clue that something was deeply wrong. Then one night, everything clicked. I was heading to the kitchen for a glass of water, thinking Rachel had gone to bed. But I heard her voice, low and sharp, coming from the living room. "No, she doesn't know. I moved it all. It's under my name now, just until we're settled." I froze. She laughed a little and added, "She's too fragile to handle money anyway." My hands went cold. Fragile? I had spent 30 years working as a nurse. I ran emergency rooms, budgets, entire lives. I raised her alone when her father walked out. And now she thought I couldn't handle a checking account? I stood in the hallway, the glass shaking in my hand, feeling like I was no longer a mother in her eyes, but a problem she needed to manage. After that, the house didn't feel like a home anymore. My room wasn't cozy, it felt like a storage closet for someone she couldn't quite throw away. I cooked, cleaned, took care of her kids like I was the help. She even joked about it to her friends, "Oh, that's just the help." And when my phone suddenly went missing, she said the kids probably lost it. I found it later at the bottom of the trash bin. That's when it became clear, this wasn't just stress, or a misunderstanding. This was planned. She hadn't wanted me there out of love. She wanted what I had, my money, my time, my quiet obedience. And now that she'd taken everything she could, she didn't need me anymore. But here's the thing people forget about quiet women: we're not weak. Just because we don't yell doesn't mean we won't fight. Just because we love deeply doesn't mean we won't protect ourselves. They always forget who raised them. I didn't confront her. I didn't yell or scream. I just watched. And I waited. A week later, my phone rang. It was Rachel. I almost didn't pick up. But something made me listen. Her voice was soft, almost sweet. "You need to come back." I didn't mean what I said. "The boys are crying. Just, please come back. Let's talk." I stood outside in the fog, the cold curling around my feet like a warning. I knew better. But love, real or fake, still has a pull. I told myself I'd go back for the boys. Just one more night. Just long enough to make a plan. She didn't know that me walking back through that door would be the beginning of the end, for her. It happened on a Tuesday. Rachel had taken the kids to a birthday party, and I had 3 precious hours alone in the house. I wasn't snooping, just tidying up the linen closet, keeping busy. That's when I saw it, an old file box tucked behind a pile of pillowcases. My name was written on the side in faded marker, in Clifford's handwriting. My late husband. My heart caught in my throat. Inside were papers I thought were long gone, our joint accounts, life insurance info, my retirement plan. Everything I'd built and saved. But then I noticed what was missing: the recent pages. The last 6 months were gone. That's when it hit me: Rachel hadn't just accessed my money. She had rerouted it. Moved it. Hidden it. And suddenly, I needed help. Not a lawyer, at least not yet. I needed someone who understood her. Someone who knew how clever she could be with documents and numbers when she wanted something. That's when I thought of Dan, Rachel's ex-husband. My former son-in-law. We were never close, but I remembered one thing he said after the divorce. "You raised a strong woman, Nora. But strong doesn't mean honest." At the time, I brushed it off, thinking he was just hurt. But now, I wasn't so sure he was wrong. I found his number in an old paper address book. I hadn't called it in years. Still, I picked up the phone and dialed. He answered after the second ring. "Nora?" he said, surprised. "Is everything all right?" "No," I said quietly. "But I think you might be the only one who can help me." And just like that, Dan came that weekend, while Rachel was out with the kids again. We met at a quiet little diner across town, the kind of place where no one would recognize us. I slid the folder across the table to Dan and pointed out the missing documents, the strange gaps in the statements, all the signs that something wasn't right. He didn't say much at first, just stared at the papers, his brow furrowed. Then he nodded slowly. "I always had a feeling she'd pull something like this." Dan leaned in and lowered his voice. "While we were married, she used a tax prep system that I still get updates from. She never changed the login. If she moved any of your money, I can track it." My hands were shaking as I picked up my coffee. "I don't want a war," I whispered. "I just want my life back." Dan gave me a soft, sad smile. "You don't need to fight, Nora. You just need the truth. Once you have that, you decide what happens next." We shook hands, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was sinking. I went home, put the folder in a Ziploc bag, and hid it behind a loose panel in the back of my closet. Rachel wouldn't find it. Not this time. Because I wasn't her quiet, broken mother anymore. I was a woman with proof, and soon, a plan. I just had to stay quiet long enough to see it through. I was in the kitchen later when the call came in. Rachel was upstairs, yelling at the boys to find their shoes, late again for another one of her important appointments. I stepped outside and answered in a whisper. "What is it?" I asked. Dan's voice came through steady and low. "I checked her financial history through the tax software. You were right. She's been draining your retirement account." I leaned against the side of the house. My legs felt like jelly. "How much?" "About 60,000, he said. "Maybe more, depending on timing." My throat closed. That was more than half of everything I had left. Dan kept going. "It gets worse. She moved the money into a joint account, with someone named Alec. I ran a check. He's her boyfriend." My heart dropped. Boyfriend? She said he was just a friend from work. Dan sighed. She might have said a lot of things. But they've been moving money around. Looks like they're planning to buy a condo together. One you're not listed on. I stared into the backyard, the patchy grass, the rusted swing set Clifford and I built for Rachel when she turned 3. Everything blurred. She wasn't just taking my money. She was building a whole new life without me, using my savings to do it. Does she know you found all this? I asked. No. I used my old login. She's careless when she thinks she's winning. I closed my eyes. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was betrayal served with a smile, the same one she wore when she made my tea, or hugged me on my birthday. She'd never wanted me there out of love. She just wanted what I had, my security, my stability. And once she got it, she was done. Dan, I said quietly, please don't say anything. Don't warn her. Don't confront her. If she suspects anything, she'll twist it. She always does. I understand, he said. So, what's your next move? I hesitated. I'm not sure yet. But now I know who she really is. And that's a start. We hung up. I stepped back inside. Rachel was still yelling upstairs, her voice echoing like it belonged to someone I didn't know anymore. That night, while the house slept, I sat at the kitchen table with an old teacup, Clifford's favorite. I remembered what he always told me, you don't have to shout to be strong. Just be steady. Be exact. The next morning, I told Rachel I had a doctor's appointment. Instead, I went to the bank. There, I met a young man named Simon. I explained what I needed. He helped me get copies of the last 6 months of account activity. It took more ID than I thought I had, but eventually, he handed me everything: withdrawals, transfers, missing authorizations. All of it. There was one transfer that stood out. My name had been removed from our joint account without my permission. That was illegal. I thanked him, slipped the documents into my purse, and walked out of that bank taller than I had in years. Rachel thought she'd buried me in paperwork and lies. But now, I had the trail. And I was going to follow it, every step of the way. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Rachel's face, the way she smiled that smug little smile and told me not to worry about money. The way she laughed, soft and fake, like she had nothing to hide. But now I knew. And she had no idea what was coming. When I said I still wanted to keep track of my own spending, Rachel just waved it off like it didn't matter. It's all one big family pot now, Mom. Relax, she said. But it wasn't just a shared account, it was stealing, and I'd let it happen. The next morning, I went to my doctor for a routine checkup. Just the usual, blood pressure, vitamins, that kind of stuff. She asked how I was doing living with Rachel. I smiled and said, fine, even though that wasn't true. She looked at me for a moment, then said gently, your stress levels are high again. Are you sure you're okay? Maybe it was the tiredness, or just the kindness in her voice, but I broke. Not loudly, just a quiet, shaky voice and dry eyes. I didn't tell her everything. Not the betrayal. Not how my heart hurt. But I told her about the money, the way Rachel took over my bank stuff, even took my phone. Her eyes got wide, and she sat next to me. Nora, she said softly, this is financial abuse. You need to talk to someone. I whispered, I don't want to cause trouble. She gave my hand a gentle squeeze. You're not. You're protecting yourself. Later that day, I called the number she gave me, some support hotline for financial abuse. I almost hung up 3 times. But then a warm, calm voice answered, thank you for calling FARS. This is Mina. How can I help you? Her voice wasn't fake or robotic. It was real, like someone who had seen women like me struggle and still keep going. I told her everything. From the moment Rachel invited me to live with her, to the day she threatened to call the police. When I mentioned how my bank account got changed without my permission, Mina's tone changed, not mean, but firm. That's illegal, she said. We can help. Do you have proof? I nodded. I do now. She told me they could assign me an advocate, someone to help me gather all the proof and walk me through my options, whether legal or financial. Even safety plans, if I needed one. I'm not trying to punish her, I said quietly. I just want my independence back. Mina didn't hesitate. That's not punishment, she said. That's safety. By the end of the call, I had an appointment with a woman named Janine. She used to work as an estate planner, and now she helps women like me full-time. Mina said Janine was sharp, discreet, and not afraid to shake things up. Just what I needed. I hung up the phone and sat at the kitchen table again. Same chair. Same cup of tea. But I wasn't scared anymore. I had a plan now. I wasn't alone. I tucked the hotline number into my journal, right next to the date Rachel asked me for my money, the same day I stopped being her mom and started being her target. Rachel still thought I was too soft to fight back. Let her. Let her think that. I was quietly building my case, bit by bit, record by record. When the truth came out, it wouldn't be loud or messy. It would come with one powerful thing, my signature. After Janine was officially assigned, I knew I had to be careful. If Rachel controlled my phone, she controlled everything. So I told her I was going out for a walk, something I did often, just to breathe and get away from her judgment. She barely looked up from her laptop, sipping some fancy smoothie and scrolling through home decor websites. I walked straight to the pharmacy on the corner and asked the young man behind the counter, "Do you sell burner phones?" He blinked. "You mean prepaid?" I nodded. He gave me a basic flip phone, no apps, no internet, just calling and texting. It was perfect. Quiet, simple, safe. Back home, I hid the phone in the only place Rachel would never check, inside Clifford's old toolbox out in the garage. Behind the rusted pliers, under the secret panel he had built himself. Rachel hated that box. Said it smelled like dust. And old memories. Perfect hiding spot. The next day, while she was at work, I pulled the phone out and called Janine. Her voice was calm, sharp, and to my surprise, kind. She'd looked over the notes Mina started and said, "This is a textbook. Case of elder financial abuse, mixed with emotional pressure. Are you ready to move forward?" I paused. "I'm scared," I admitted. "Good," she said without missing a beat. "It means you finally see it for what it is. You're not in denial anymore." Then she started showing me exactly what to do, how to gather documents, take pictures of records, and save emails. I wasn't just surviving now. I was preparing. Janine showed me how to record conversations using the little flip phone's voice memo feature. I didn't even know it could do that. Then she said something that made my stomach twist. "Based on what you've told me, Nora, it's time to think about protective options, especially if you believe she'll retaliate when she finds out you're digging." I looked down and whispered, "She'll say I'm losing my mind." "They always do," Janine replied softly. "That's why we create a timeline. The truth leaves footprints." So that's what I started doing, leaving footprints of my own. Over the next week, I took pictures of everything. Receipts. Calendar notes where Rachel wrote things like, "Mom picks up kids," or "Mom babysits." I made copies of my pension papers. I wrote down every conversation where she called me forgetful or made jokes about me being senile. I kept the flip phone hidden, fully charged, and always out of her reach. It felt sneaky, like I was living in a spy movie, but really, I was just trying to survive. One night, I heard a soft click at my door. I opened it to find Rachel standing there. "Oops," she said with a fake laugh. "I thought I left my charger in here." But her eyes went straight to the drawer where I kept my old phone, dead, cracked, and useless. I let her look. Let her think I was still the clueless, soft mother she thought I was. She had no idea I'd already met Janine in person. No clue that Janine had helped me write a financial affidavit and connected me with an elder law attorney. She didn't know every dollar she'd quietly moved was now tracked, documented, and frozen. Everything had changed. But Rachel hadn't. She still thought I was weak, harmless, and easy to control. So I played the part. I smiled. I washed the dishes. I kept the kids entertained. When she scolded me for asking questions about the bills, I said nothing. But behind every polite smile was a new note. Behind every "okay" was a recorded voice memo. I wasn't being quiet because I was scared, I was quiet because I was working. Still, Rachel caught wind that something was off. And instead of backing down, she escalated, fast. It happened the day after I met with the lawyer. I came home and walked into my bedroom, and something was off. The furniture was moved. My clothes were folded, but not by me. My drawers had been opened. The box where I kept all my important papers, gone. I found Rachel in the kitchen, sipping a green juice like it was just another day. "I cleaned up your room a little," she said with a big smile. It was getting cluttered. My mouth went dry. "Did you take my documents?" She blinked, way too innocently. "What documents?" "My legal papers." "Oh, those old files from Dad's toolbox?" I tossed them out. "They were outdated. You don't need them." My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear her. But I didn't say a word. Not yet. That night, the internet went down. Rachel said she was just resetting the router. The next morning, my hearing aids were missing from the charger. That afternoon, my phone was gone. She knew. And that's when the gaslighting began. "You've been wandering off, Mom," she said sweetly. "You've been talking to strangers, acting confused. Are you sleeping okay? Maybe we should book a cognitive test. You know, just in case." At night, I heard her whispering on the phone. "She's not well," she said. "She's acting paranoid. Forgetful. I don't know what to do. I think she might hurt herself. Or the kids." That's when it hit me, she wasn't just trying to make me feel crazy. She was trying to prove I was crazy. She was setting the stage to take everything. I borrowed a phone at the pharmacy and left a voicemail for Janine, my voice shaking. She called me back in 10 minutes. She's building a case to get guardianship, Janine said firmly. That would give her full legal control over your money, your property, even your medical care. We need to act fast. Within hours, Janine contacted the elder law attorney and filed for an emergency freeze on all the accounts Rachel had touched. She also called Adult Protective Services to start a formal record of emotional abuse and financial manipulation. But we weren't done. Dan got involved again, this time, with proof. He brought old emails where Rachel openly talked about how to gain full control of my finances. Voicemails where she laughed about me not understanding power of attorney. It was solid. Enough to stop her cold. But Rachel didn't know any of that yet. That night, she burst into my room, holding a letter in her hand, her face twisted with rage. You went behind my back, she shouted. You called Dan? You called some advocate? Are you trying to ruin this family? I looked at her calmly, feeling something inside me shift. You already did that, I said. Her voice dropped into a hiss. You're delusional. You're unstable. And if you don't stop this, I'll have no choice but to. I didn't stand up fast or try to make a scene. I just stood tall, steady, calm, and done pretending. Go ahead, I said. Take legal steps. Please. I'd love for a judge to see everything I've gathered, all the things you've signed, everything you've taken. Rachel froze. Her mouth opened like she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. She just stared at me like she didn't even recognize who I was anymore. And honestly? She didn't. I wasn't the mother in the kitchen apron anymore. I wasn't soft hands and quiet yes. I was a woman with proof. A woman with support. And I was done playing house. That night, I went to bed with a copy of my emergency petition folded under my pillow. Let her try me now. The next morning, I walked 2 doors down to Meredith's house. We'd only ever exchanged smiles and small talk by the mailbox. She had this lovely garden that bloomed no matter the season, even when mine didn't. I never imagined I'd end up on her porch with shaking hands and a heart that felt like it might give out. Hi, I said, my voice barely steady. This is a little odd, I know, but can I use your phone? She didn't ask why. She didn't need to. She just opened the door and said, of course. I called Janine first and gave her the new address. Then I called Dan. Then the elder law attorney. All 3 said the same thing, good. Stay out of that house. Let us handle it from here. Meredith waited until I was off the phone, then brought me a warm mug of tea and sat next to me on her sunroom couch. Is it your daughter? She asked gently. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I didn't feel ashamed anymore. Yes, I said. And I told her everything. How Rachel invited me to move in, then slowly took over everything, my money, my papers, my freedom. How she smiled sweetly while locking me out of my own life. Meredith didn't interrupt. She just listened. But I noticed her hands tighten around her cup. Then she looked me in the eye and said, you're not crazy. And you're not alone. I hadn't realized how much I needed someone to say that. For the next few days, I stayed on her pull-out couch, eating toast and soup, watching birds flutter at her feeder in the morning. It felt like peace. Real peace. Rachel tried to call, I didn't pick up. She tried texting, I had no phone. She even left a note at Meredith's door. I didn't read it. I didn't need to. Because by then, Janine had submitted everything. A full affidavit, recorded conversations, emails, and a timeline that showed the emotional games Rachel had played. The elder law attorney filed for full financial protection and an emergency review. The bank froze every account tied to my name. Adult Protective Services did a wellness check. And Dan sent me a photo of Rachel's face when she was served the legal notice. She didn't look angry. She looked shocked. She had spent so long treating me like I was slow, like I couldn't possibly understand what was happening, like I was someone to manage, not someone to respect. But now the truth had backup. And it was outside her reach. I went back to the house once, just to collect my things. Meredith came with me, arms crossed, chin lifted. Rachel opened the door with a fake smile plastered across her face. Mom, this is ridiculous, she said. You're blowing everything out of proportion. I didn't say a word. I just walked right past her. I took only what was mine, my clothes, my journals, and one framed photo of Clifford and me on our 25th anniversary. Rachel watched from the hallway but didn't follow. She didn't argue. She just stood there, trying to calculate the damage, and I let her. Because fixing her? That wasn't my job anymore. That night, back at Meredith's, I slept for 10 straight hours. No creaking floors. No fake smiles. No fear. Just rest. I had backup now. I had space. And I had every intention of seeing this through. Once I was out of the house and under legal protection, Rachel's world, built on my silence, started to crack. The first crack came with a single word: frozen. Janine called me early, 7:42 a.m., the same time I used to be stirring oatmeal for the boys while Rachel scrolled on her phone. "It's done," she said. At first, I didn't understand. "All accounts with your name or money tied to them are frozen under protective review," she explained. "She can't touch a penny, not even with a cosigner." I sat there on Meredith's couch, my hands trembling, staring at the cup of tea in my lap. "She knows by now," I whispered. "She does," Janine said. "And she's gone quiet." And for the first time in months, silence didn't feel like fear. It felt like freedom. It turned out Rachel had submitted documents with updates I never approved. When the bank noticed mismatched signatures and suspicious changes, they flagged it for investigation. A courier delivered the notice to Rachel. Her access to my accounts was suspended while everything went under legal review. Her boyfriend Alec, the one she was planning to buy a condo with, disappeared the same day. I guess he bailed the moment he realized the money wasn't really hers. Poetic, in a way. Janine warned me not to expect any kind of apology. "People like Rachel don't fall apart," she said. "They recalculate." "That silence you're hearing? It's not guilt, it's strategy." But this time, I wasn't afraid of what Rachel might do next. Because now, I had the power. While she scrambled to clean up the mess she'd made, I filed a motion through my attorney for full financial independence. We included everything: bank statements, timelines, voice memos, even proof of how she tried to have me labeled as mentally unfit. Rachel didn't respond. She didn't contest it. She didn't even show up to court. That told me everything. She never thought I'd get this far. She counted on me giving up, on me staying quiet, staying small. But instead, I walked into that courtroom with my spine straight and a 3-ring binder full of truth. Every lie, every locked drawer, every unauthorized transaction, documented and dated. The judge didn't take long. He granted me full protective status over my finances. From that moment on, I had exclusive control of all my accounts. Rachel was legally barred from touching or managing a single penny. The court even issued a financial no-contact order. She couldn't access my information through anyone else either. It was, in legal terms, a big, bold stay out of my life. After the hearing, Janine met me outside the courthouse. "You did it," she said, her voice quiet but proud. "No," I told her. "We did it." But what I felt most wasn't pride, it was clarity. Rachel had used my guilt, my grief, and my love as tools to control me. She twisted my trust and called it family loyalty. But now, I had finally cut the cord. Not out of hate. Out of self-respect. That night, Meredith and I had grilled cheese, tomato soup, and a little glass of cheap red wine. For the first time in a long time, I ate without watching my back. Rachel couldn't touch me anymore. Not my money. Not my peace. Not my life. Winning in court wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. A few days later, I walked into the bank with a folder in one hand, and my name in the other. The branch manager was waiting, Olivia, sharp suit, sharper eyes. But when she saw the court order in my hand, her face softened. "Mrs. Ellison," she said kindly, standing to greet me. "We're ready when you are." I sat down across from her. Sunlight hit the gold ring on my finger, the one Clifford gave me. I still wore it. Not because I was stuck in the past, but because it reminded me who I used to be. Before I let someone else's daughter turn me into a ghost in my own life. "I'd like to transfer full control of my accounts back into my name," I said. "And I want all joint holders removed. Permanently." Olivia nodded. "We've already reviewed your paperwork. Everything's in order. We'll take care of it today." She brought out the forms, lots of them. And I signed every page with a steady hand. No shaking. No hesitation. Every signature felt like a deep breath I'd been holding for years. Every name I wrote was me saying, "You don't own me anymore." I reclaimed my checking account. My retirement savings. The mutual fund Clifford had set up before he passed. I even opened a brand new account, just in my name, where all the frozen money would go once the investigation wrapped up. Then came the moment I didn't know I needed. Olivia opened her desk drawer and pulled out a copy of Rachel's signature form, the one she used to gain access to my accounts last spring. "Would you like a copy?" she asked. I stared at Rachel's signature. Elegant. Neat. Her handwriting had always been beautiful, even when she was stealing from me. "No," I said softly. "I'd like you to shred it." Without a word, Olivia slid it into the shredder. I watched it vanish, strip by strip, line by line, until her name was just dust. Then I stood up. It felt strange walking out of that bank with nothing but my purse and my papers. But this time, I didn't feel empty. I felt free. Walking out of that bank felt like leaving behind a version of myself who'd been asleep for far too long. A woman who thought giving meant always being quiet. Who believed love meant sacrificing everything, even herself. That woman was gone. When I got back to Meredith's house, there was an envelope waiting for me. No return address, just my name, written in Rachel's familiar handwriting. I opened it slowly, bracing for something angry. But it wasn't that. It was worse. Mom, it began, I didn't mean for things to go this far. I was scared. Alec pressured me. The mortgage was too much. I didn't know what else to do. Please don't cut me off forever. I'm your daughter. I sat down on the couch, letter in my lap, and something clicked inside me. She still didn't get it. It wasn't the money that broke me. It was the choice. Rachel didn't come to me as a daughter needing help. She came as a thief looking for cover. And when I didn't go along with her plan, she didn't ask for forgiveness, she tried to bury me in lies. That's not fear. That's calculation. I didn't write her back. Not because I was hurt, but because I was clear. I didn't need an apology. I needed space. And now, finally, I had it. My accounts were mine again. My documents were protected. My voice was steady and strong. But I wasn't just thinking about myself anymore. There were children in that house. And they needed protection too. James cried the most. He was only 5, and already afraid to make noise. I used to find him curled up in the corner of the playroom, headphones on, clutching a worn-out teddy. Bear-eyed stitched back together 3 times. Rachel always said he was just sensitive. But I knew better. Children don't go quiet unless quiet feels safer. One night, before I left Rachel's house for good, James whispered as I tucked him in, "Can you stay with me, till morning?" I did. He held my hand like it was the only thing keeping him afloat. From Meredith's guest room, I couldn't stop thinking about them. About what they might be hearing through the walls. What words Rachel used when no one was watching. What? Tears dried before morning came. I told Janine. She listened carefully, then asked, "Are you willing to report it?" I paused. Even after everything, a small part of me still flinched at the thought of turning in my own daughter. Still held on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd find her way back to kindness. But children should never have to pay the price for their mother's cruelty. So I said, yes. Dan helped, too. He brought a folder he'd kept from their marriage. There were texts from Rachel, angry and overwhelmed. Emails where she threatened to smack some sense into the boys. Photos of broken toys and bruised shins she claimed were just from falling. I didn't use them in court, he told me. I thought she'd change. She didn't, I said. We gathered everything, my journal entries, notes about emotional neglect, her outbursts, the strange things she'd accused me of, things the boys had also whispered when they thought no one could hear. Then we called Child Protective Services. Not to punish her. To protect them. The caseworker showed up 2 days later. I wasn't there, but I got the call. Rachel tried to play the part, calm, capable, put together. The house was spotless. School folders neatly laid out on the counter. Lavender in the air like a spa. But the boys didn't follow her script. James clung to the caseworker's leg. "I don't like when Mommy yells and throws plates," he said. Evan added softly, "I want to live where Grandma makes soup. And doesn't cry." They didn't speak in legal language. They spoke child. And it was clear. The investigation started that same afternoon. Dan stepped up right away, offering to take the boys. He had a house just 1 town over, a dog, a quiet backyard, a sunroom. But the boys asked for me. And for once, the system listened. My attorney filed for temporary custody, citing both elder abuse and emotional harm to the children. The court moved fast. By the end of the week, I was granted guardianship. Rachel didn't show up. Didn't send a lawyer. Didn't even contest it. The next day, Meredith came with me to pick up the boys. I expected tears, or maybe confusion. Instead, James ran straight into my arms, yelling, "Grandma." Evan didn't say anything, he just reached out and held my hand. Back at Meredith's, we made a cozy corner in the living room. Blankets, books, puzzles. The fridge was full of apples and peanut butter and juice boxes. I tucked them in that night without fear, without yelling from down the hall or tension. In the air. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't just free. I was home. The boys smiled for the first time in days. Just a bowl of applesauce and a juice box, and their little faces lit up. That night, I tucked them into bed, not because I had to, but because I chose to. I was there to protect them. And for the first time in a long time, they were safe. But I knew that hugs and snacks weren't enough. Real safety doesn't just come from bedtime stories, it comes with signatures, paperwork, and the courage to stand up and say, "I'll take care of this. I'll do it right." That first night they stayed with me, I didn't sleep lying down. I stayed sitting up in the armchair near their room. Not because I was scared, but because every little sigh or stir they made in their sleep let something deep inside me relax. It felt like I'd finally shut a door that should have been closed years ago. But kindness isn't custody. And safety isn't official until a judge puts it in writing. The next morning, I sat with my attorney, Mr. Reynolds. He had calm eyes, gray hair, and the kind of voice that made dignity sound like armor. He reviewed the emergency order, pen tapping gently against the page. "You have standing," he said. "With the financial abuse, the neglect claims, and Rachel's silence, we can move for full guardianship." I swallowed hard. "I'm not trying to take her kids." "You're protecting them," he said plainly. "You're doing what she won't." It wasn't a quick process, but it moved faster than it would have if I'd waited. With Janine's support, Dan's records from his marriage, and the caseworker's notes, especially James' whispered words and Evan's quiet bruises, we had enough to move forward. Rachel didn't fight it. Not once. She didn't show up to the hearing. No letters. No phone calls. No last-minute tearful scenes. Just silence. And in court, silence means consent. It broke my heart in a quiet, hollow kind of way. Not because I wanted her to win, but because she didn't even try to keep them. That was the real betrayal. 3 weeks later, the judge granted me full legal guardianship. I left the courthouse holding 2 certified copies, one for the school, one for the doctor. I was back in the world of permission slips and peanut allergies. Only this time, I wasn't just an emergency contact. This time, I was their guardian. When I told the boys they'd be staying with me for good, James asked if he could bring his teddy bear to school. Evan just nodded and whispered, "Do we still get story time?" "Yes," I said, pulling them close. "Every night." We found a small rental house. Nothing fancy, 2 bedrooms, a little yard, and a kitchen that smelled like warm wood when the sun hit just right. Meredith helped us move in, bringing over extra towels and baked macaroni like we'd been family forever. Dan came by often, not to see me, but to be there for his sons. And the boys lit up every time. It wasn't perfect. Too much had happened between Dan and Rachel for that. But it was honest. Gentle. Real. And that's what kids need. Not a fake picture of family, but the truth of being cared for. Day by day, I rebuilt our routines. Breakfast at 7. Homework before dinner. Bedtime books, 2 stories, always, never just one. And each night, when they were asleep, I sat in the quiet and let the grief come. Not for what I had now, but for what I had lost to get here. I lost my daughter. My illusions. Years I couldn't get back. But I gained something, too. Clarity. Peace. A second chance. The paperwork was signed. The house was warm. The boys were healing. Rachel was still quiet. Still watching. Probably still calculating. But this time, I had more than court orders. I had roots. I thought it was over. I thought the silence meant she had finally let go. But predators don't go quiet unless they're circling. And then one morning, there was a knock at my door. It was a Thursday. The boys were at school. I'd just folded the laundry and was steeping my tea when I heard it, 3 sharp, measured knocks. Not a neighbor. Not the mailman. When I opened the door, I saw the badge first. "Mrs. Nora Ellison?" the deputy asked. My stomach dropped. "Yes, is something wrong?" He handed me a sealed envelope. "You've been named in a civil complaint. You're not under investigation, but you need to read this." I nodded, my hands suddenly cold, even though it was June. He tipped his hat and walked away. I closed the door, sat at the kitchen table, and opened the envelope with a paring knife like I was cutting into something venomous. Inside, a formal complaint. From Rachel. A petition to regain custody. Allegations. Claims of alienation. And worse. She said I turned her own kids against her. I let out a small, bitter laugh, not because it was funny, but because deep down, I knew. This was just like her. She hadn't changed. She waited, quietly, until things calmed down, and then, like always, she tried to rewrite the story to make herself the victim. Now, I was the bad guy, the manipulator, the thief, the bitter old woman who brainwashed her sons to hate their loving mother. But what she didn't expect. I wasn't the same woman who used to back down. I called my lawyer right away. He was already on top of it. She had filed the complaint in the wrong court. And the judge who would hear this case? The same one from the guardianship case. "Will this go anywhere?" I asked. He shook his head, "No, but we still have to respond." That night, Janine reached out. Her voice was steady. "This is what abusers do when they lose control. They throw blame, twist stories. Don't let the noise make you doubt what's true." And I didn't. I had everything I needed, the records, court orders, counselor notes, statements from the boys, even letters from their school. Most importantly, I had time on my side. Rachel hadn't called the kids in nearly 2 months. No gifts. No birthday cards. No sorry. Nothing. The hearing was set for 2 weeks later. I didn't tell the boys. There was no need to drag them back into a courtroom. They were starting to laugh again. Evan had joined the soccer team. James was learning to ride his bike. I was determined to guard their peace like a wall around a castle. On the day of the hearing, Rachel walked in wearing a pale blouse and too much makeup. She looked like she'd rehearsed every move. Her voice shook just enough to seem believable. She said she was sorry. Said she was in therapy. Said she was ready to fix things. The judge didn't even ask her a single question. He looked through the file, then looked straight at her and said, "This court finds no evidence that returning custody would serve the children's best interest." Just like that, case closed. Rachel didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply straightened her sleeve, stood up, and walked out of the courtroom. I watched her go. And for the first time ever, I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel angry. I didn't even feel sad. I felt nothing. Just calm. Distance. Peace. The cycle had finally ended. That evening, back at home, James asked if I could push him on the swing. I said yes. Evan helped set the table. After dinner, we played Uno. Meredith stopped by with muffins. The house felt warm, safe, full. Let Rachel knock again if she wants. I'm not opening that door. 2 weeks after the court case, I got a letter. The envelope didn't have her name, but I knew her handwriting right away. Rachel still knew how to pour guilt into pretty words. There was no stamp, just slipped into my mailbox, like it belonged there. Meredith handed it to me with a raised eyebrow. "Didn't see anyone," she said, "but I've got a camera on the porch now." I nodded. My heart felt heavy. The letter was short. "Mom, I'm sorry. I wasn't well. I miss the boys. I miss you. Can we talk? Please? Can I come back? I didn't lie. I didn't steal. I didn't try to erase you. I just miss you." As if this had all been some little mix-up. As if all the pain she caused could be swept away with a few soft words. I stared at the letter long after my tea went cold. I thought for a moment about the Rachel I used to know, the teenager who picked wildflowers for me, the young woman who called crying after her first breakup, the mother who asked me to hold her son's hand during his first fever. But that version of her hadn't shown up in years. The woman who had shown up tried to take everything, my home, my name, my dignity, my grandchildren. And when she lost, she waited. And now, she wanted back in. Not with actions. Not with real change. Just words. As always. I didn't respond. Not right away. I didn't even tell Janine or my lawyer. I left the letter on my nightstand for 3 days while I watched Evan bring home an A on his spelling test and James ride his bike all by himself. They were doing well. They were happy. They didn't ask about her. They didn't avoid her name, either. She was no longer a shadow in the room. They were healing, because I hadn't let her back in. And I wasn't going to start now. When I finally replied, I didn't write it by hand. I typed it, printed it, sealed it in an envelope. "Rachel, the children are safe and well. I am not interested in reopening a relationship under these circumstances. Please direct any further communication through my attorney. Nora, no anger. No apology. Just the truth." And this time, I didn't flinch when I hit send. It wasn't revenge. It was a boundary, one she couldn't twist or walk over. I drove the letter to her apartment myself. Just like she had done to me, I slid it under her door and walked away. I didn't wait for her shadow to appear in the hallway. I didn't wonder how she'd react. I'd spent too many years doing that. She'd already taken enough. That night, I sat on the porch while the boys ran through the yard playing tag. Meredith came over and handed me a glass of lemonade. "Was it hard?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah. But it was the right thing." She paused. "Do you think she'll try again?" I shrugged. "Maybe. But if she does, I won't be in the same place I was before. I've learned something Rachel never did. Love without respect? That's not love. That's control. And I'm not letting myself be someone's doormat anymore. I offer love like a home, a safe place, a steady hand, a warm hug when it's needed. I'm still a mother, but only to people who know the difference between love and ownership. Healing didn't come all at once. It snuck in like the sunrise, slow, quiet, almost invisible. Then one day, you look around and realize the darkness is gone. There wasn't a big, dramatic moment. No movie scene breakdown. No loud celebration. Just peace. Small, steady peace. It was in a hot cup of tea I actually finished. In a house. Filled with real laughter, not nervous laughter, not forced. A full night's sleep without fear that someone might be jiggling the doorknob. That was healing. Evan started leaving little stick figure drawings on the fridge, us at the zoo. At the park, even on a rocket ship. James didn't flinch when the phone rang anymore. They argued like normal kids do, over Legos and who fed the cat last. Not over fear or survival. I caught myself singing while cooking. And one morning, I looked in the mirror and smiled at the woman I saw, not because everything was perfect, but because I recognized her. She looked strong. Then one day, Mr. Reynolds called. "The final court review is complete," he said. "You're no longer a temporary guardian. You're officially family again, in the eyes of the law." I thanked him, hung up, and cried. Not out of fear or sadness, but because for the first time in years, I felt rooted. I felt safe. Meredith threw a small dinner to celebrate. Just her, Dan, the boys, and me. She made roast chicken. Dan brought sparkling cider. Evan lifted his little plastic cup and toasted, "To Grandma, the boss of everything." We laughed until our sides hurt. Later, while we were cleaning up, Dan leaned over and said, "You saved them." I didn't answer right away. I just kept wiping the same plate twice. Finally, I said, "No. I just stopped waiting to be picked." That's what it had been all along. All those years, I walked on eggshells around Rachel. Trying to be helpful, kind, useful, thinking that if I gave enough, she'd finally love me back. But love without respect? That's like debt, it keeps taking. And I had finally paid it off. Not with words, not with fights, but with silence, strength, and boundaries. Weeks later, James and I were sitting on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, when he asked quietly, "Do you think Mom misses us?" I didn't lie, but I didn't hurt him either. I think she misses the life she imagined. But people who love you the right way, they don't make you wonder if they do. He nodded like only a child can, serious and soft at the same time. Then he said, "I'm glad we're here." So was I. I never wrote Rachel back. And she never wrote me again. Her name stopped being a ghost we whispered about. Instead, it became something like the weather, real, sometimes painful, but no longer dangerous. A storm we had survived. The house slowly filled again, not with stuff, but with moments. Chalk drawings on the driveway. Pancakes burned on Sunday mornings. Lego towers that fell and got rebuilt without tears. I joined a support group for grandparents. Raising grandkids. The first time, I didn't say much. The second time, I cried. By the third, I was the one handing out tissues. Because healing isn't about forgetting the pain. It's about seeing it with new eyes. It's the power to look back at what tried to break you and say, "You only miss me now because I stopped letting you use me." Being alone? That was never the scary part. Being used was. And quiet doesn't mean weak. It means ready. I tucked the court papers into a fireproof box. I deleted Rachel's contact from my phone. One night, James asked me, "Can I call you Mom, Grandma? Since you kind of do both?" I pulled him close and hugged him tight. "You can call me anything you want. Because I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm finally living."